All right, is there sound there now? Hopefully. We have some sound. Now I hope you guys, I started the program early because I wanted to catch that deer out in the marsh. And now it is coming in. I'm gonna see if I can see it over here. There's some Glossy Ibis out in the marsh today too. We're doing another Cedar Island trail program. We're going in a different direction this time. Oh, there's a nice view of a Glossy Ibis right there. Poking around, looking for some snails. Let's try and zoom in. There we go. So that's a Glossy Ibis. Let's see if we can find that deer. So the deer do come out into the marsh. They're looking for food. It doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with them. And I'm not seeing it. It was coming this direction. It may cross over. Yep, there it is right there. Can you guys see that? White-tailed deer. It's right between the trees. Here it comes out. It is not afraid of me at all, apparently. And I'm talking. It's going to cross the trail. How cool is that? Look at the beautiful color. I'm always so impressed. That reddish brown color. When they're out in the open, they really stand out. It's like, that's terrible camouflage. But when they are in the forest, they just blend right in. Almost immediately, they just start to disappear. So I'm guessing this deer has been around people quite a bit. It is cautious about me. At one point it raised its head. I thought it was going to bolt. Definitely checking me out. Look at that long tongue. It uses that, it'll wrap around and help bring the grasses and leaves that it likes to eat. They are browsers, so they're just going to be eating any of the leaves that they like that are tasty to them. They sometimes will gnaw on bones, and that's just because they need calcium in their diet. There's some people coming down the trail, so I'm going to move off the trail. Hopefully the deer doesn't run away. It's just browsing there on the side of the trail in the bushes. I don't know if you heard, a red-winged blackbird just called. So this is a beautiful day. Now, again, I've done this program a couple of times. We went from the other direction, so we'll see different things in this direction. But I want to show the difference as the seasons change, what changes out here on the trail. Seeing a deer is a big change from our other programs. So that's really cool that I got to see a deer, that you all got to see a deer. Although I'm pretty excited about that one. It's still off to the side there. Look at how thick. If you remember last time, I'm going to pan up and show you the tree canopy. The last time we did this program, there's a good canopy on it. This is much thicker than it was last time. My gimbal doesn't like to be pointed straight up. All right, so let's keep moving along and see what other things we can find on the trail. I love Cedar Island Trail. Again, not as many invasives as some of the other trails here in the park. There's some beautiful trees coming up on a hickory here. So I've talked about compound leaves. If you want to see any of the past programs, and I suggest going back and looking at the Cedar Island program. I've done 2 of them now, so this will be the 3rd. And you can see the difference as it changes through the seasons. But this is a compound leaf. You can see those past programs on megspointnaturecenter.org's YouTube and YouTube. So the Virtual Learning Center on the website and our YouTube channel. This is a single leaf. This is a single leaf from a hickory tree. And these are considered leaflets, where normally you would look at it and say, oh, that's the leaf right there. That's not. All of these 7 are part of one leaf. So very cool. The hickories it's called a compound leaf, and the hickories are one of those that have a compound leaf. Now, the deer is way off now out in the marsh. When we moved, we're almost to the bridge here, and you'll get to probably a better view of the deer down there. Again, the canopy is much thicker than it was the last time I did the Cedar Island walk. So that's pretty cool. The first time I did the walk, barely any leaves. It was really early in the season. But now we've got the leaves are coming out. And the last time I did this walk, we had all of this whitewash. And I was trying to figure out what could it be, what bird would be perching above here to drop all of this whitewash. Today, on my way out to the platform, I noticed this. It's a dead fish on the trail. Now, that's a porgy. So you look at this and you're like, wow, how'd that fish get way out there? This is not a place where people usually go fishing. We're not near any open water. So an osprey must have dropped it. There are osprey nests right out here in the marsh. So then I started thinking, well, if the osprey, I'm going to try and point up again. The gimbal doesn't like this, but we're going to try it. If the osprey dropped that fish, then maybe it's eating the fish in the tree. Look at that nice bare branches right there. A perfect place for osprey to eat a fish. And with the wind blowing like it is today, all of that whitewash, while it's sitting there eating a fish, whitewash is bird poop, all of that is going to end up in this branch and all over the ground here. So this is probably the whitewash from an osprey sitting up in the tree eating, and it was eating that fish and dropped it and didn't swoop down and pick up the fish. So hopefully a gull or something will come along and grab it, or a raccoon may eat it. But that's how a fish ends up on the middle of the Cedar Island Trail, the side of the Cedar Island Trail. I just found that fascinating. Okay, sort of like solving a mystery. How'd the whitewash get there and how'd the fish get there? And that's just my theory of how it got there. Oh, let's take a look here. So earlier in the season, this is honeysuckle, Asian honeysuckle. It was in flower. Now it's starting to go to berry or go to seed. And these berries, you will get a lot more of them later in the year. But one of the things, the easy way to identify the honeysuckle is the berries, there's always two stuck together. So they're paired berries, and they will get much more red. Some of these are still a bit light. But this is something, if you look at the past Cedar Island programs, you're going to see it's very different. That bush was in flower at the time. And this is, again, one of the roses. This is not beach rose. I'm going to have to look up which rose this one is. This may be actually our native rose that grows in the dunes. Look at how beautiful that flower is, though. So you guys can put up questions at any time. I'd appreciate it if you continue posting where you're messaging from. Always like to see that. There's a bee, a little pollinator going to work. That looks like a bumblebee. You can tell bumblebees from carpenter bees because bumblebees are covered in fuzz. Look at the massive amount of pollen on that bumblebee's legs. That's where it collects the pollen. So it's got a nice bundle of pollen under there. I'm going to move along here. Coming out, let's see if we can see the deer still out in the marsh. Let's see. I don't see it. It could have moved. It could have gone all the way over there. That's Willard Island over there. So our deer may have ended up over there. I just tripped on a board, so I think we need to do a few repairs. Dan, if you're watching this, there's some loose boards out here on the bridge. Dan is our maintenance guy who has to take care of all of the issues that people have all day at the park. One of our maintenance guys. We've got a great crew of guys. Here's one I always want to show people. Poison ivy. Shiny leaves, not always shiny though, especially here at the park. The shininess starts to fade later in the year. The reddish growth is only the new growth. Another thing that happens as we get later in the season is they turn yellow. So we'll look at that the next time I do this walk. Well, we should see a difference in the poison ivy, or could see a difference. Oh, here's something really awesome. This is the honeysuckle still in flower. So on the other side of that bridge, the honeysuckle's gone to berry already. Here it's still flowering. I want to show you too. This is one of our fruit trees. I think this one's an apple. Yeah, it looks like a crab apple or an apple. It's all rotting out here, but all a tree needs is this outer portion to continue to grow. As long you'll get nice green leaves still. The outer part is the living part of the tree. There's the cambium. I'm not going to remember all the layers. But I think phloem, cambium, those are layers, and they send nutrients up and down. They exchange water and nutrients back and forth between the roots and the leaves. So as long as the outer portion of the tree is still able to do that, the tree will still live. The inner part could have died. It could die, and it will still continue the outer part will continue to grow, even though the inside of the tree is just rotting away. Structurally, it needs, I believe so. We're going to have to check with Bob, our tree expert. But structurally, I think he said it needs 20% of the tree to maintain its strength and structure to hold up. Because that's really the only thing the inner part of a tree does, is hold it up. And for a tree this size, I imagine it doesn't even need 20%, because it's not a really large tree with a lot of weight on it. All right. Someone's watching from one of the blue trails in Durham. Very cool. So on my way out, the deer was crossing the trail in the other direction, but it moved pretty quickly. I only got a glimpse of it. Let's take a look. Look at this tree right here. Many of you that have seen my programs probably can identify this tree right away. We're looking at the light barked one right there. It really stands out. This is how this tree gets its name. This is a white oak. When you look around a forest, you see the predominant color for bark is gray, right? But that white oak, that light colored bark really stands out at the right time of year. If the light is just right, it stands out. And that really looks like a white oak tree. All right, let's see. Let's take a look over here. We've got another one of my favorites. This is the hackberry. Talked about it quite a bit in my other program. The berries are edible, great berries. Is this honeysuckle? Yeah, I think that's the honeysuckle. Sometimes I get the honeysuckle can grow in the kind of the shape of a high bush blueberry. And sometimes you got to pause and take a look to make sure you're not looking at a high bush blueberry. This honeysuckle over here is also starting to go to berry. So that was unusual that we had some flowering honeysuckle back there. This is near the end. Here's more right there. There's some honeysuckle. So when you can see this honeysuckle is actually growing This is vine-like. The other ones we looked at were shrub-like. This is the honeysuckle vine right there. All right. Cheryl knew that the white oak is our state tree. Here's one that's down here. There's one of my favorite trees in the park. Look at that low branch going out. That's just asking for you to climb up there and take a nap. I think that would be a cool place for a little summertime siesta. A branch of that tree. I'm not sure that we looked at this rock very much in our other walkthroughs, but this is a really large flat rock. Now, this trail is part of a moraine. This is a secondary moraine, but behind the large one that we have along the beach, this is a much smaller moraine. So these rocks were dropped by the glacier. That's a nice, that looks like a, doesn't that look like a place for a picnic? Nice flat rock. Everybody can just sit on it or around it. That's pretty neat. Oh, since we're right here, let's take a look at a white oak leaf. So that's the leaf of a white oak. These are the lobes, and white oaks have rounded lobes. So any member of the white oak family is going to have the rounded lobes, and then the red oaks are going to have pointed lobes. These will all come to points. But that is a white oak. All right. We're going to continue on. There's another really awesome branch. We're going to actually go down and take a look at this one because there's some people coming down the trail. We'll give them space. So, look at this branch growing out. Now, past programs, again, I've talked about how the branches grow out of a tree. This tree here, this had to be exposed to lots of sunlight for a branch this large to grow out the side. It is on the edge of the marsh, so that's probably why it was able to grow this low branch right out. And it is a well-worn trail here. Many people come out and look at this branch, and actually, if you look here, this is worn pretty smooth. So looks like people stand up on this branch. And I'm going to show you why they might want to stand up on the branch, because if you look out through here, there is an excellent view of our marsh. If we pan over there, it's another good view of the marsh that you could see if you stood up on this branch. So that's probably what people are doing when they come down here. And this is Phragmites, all these tall reeds, also known as common reed. It is an invasive species. There is a native Phragmites. Really hard to find, not very common in Connecticut. The invasive is much more prevalent across the state. And they don't really like full salt marshes. It's too salty for them. But they do like areas where fresh water pours into a marsh. So if you drive along Route 1, any drainage point where the Route 1 is draining out into a marsh, all of that freshwater runoff from the road, every time it rains, creates an ideal habitat for the invasive Phragmites. All right, so we're coming up on the end of the trail. Another thing that was here the last time I did it, we had Golden Alexander was in full bloom and the wild geraniums were blooming. All that has gone by. I do see a few honeysuckle flowers out here. There's some of the golden Alexander that's already gone past, right there. So, not the best time for you to find wildflowers on this trail. There's some of the honeysuckle flowering still. And this tree here is this looks like serviceberry, but this shouldn't be blooming this late. We'll have to check that out. Some nice white flowers there. Yeah, I think that is serviceberry. And then our nice basswood tree that we looked at also on one of our other walks. And there's a side trail here. I haven't done this trail yet, so we'll just go down here a little ways, see if there's something different we can talk about. There's a cherry tree coming up right here. This is a cherry. Really rough bark. They don't live very long. But occasionally you find a really large one. There's a nice big white oak there. Another hickory. Sometimes it's nice for me to just walk and you guys can listen for the birds. There's a cherry that got broken off. And I hope you guys could hear as I was walking by there were red-winged blackbirds. Oh, looked like a mouse crossed the trail in front of me there. It was up in this area. So here's some concrete. This was probably dumped here when they were pouring the foundation for our pavilion, which is up over here. So that has a concrete floor, and I'm guessing that when that was poured, they needed to clean out the concrete truck and dumped it there. Kind of too bad. And we're coming out. All right. So this is Ranger Russ. That was our third Cedar Island Trail program. Hopefully you have time. You can go back and look at the past programs and see the difference, the changes in the trail over the, I guess now 2 months that I've been walking this trail on different programs. Starting next week, we're only going to be doing these programs, and today, we're only doing these programs at 11 o'clock. I will be doing an occasional program. If I find some special thing, I'll do a program like that deer. If I come across a deer, it may be some bizarre time, but I'll do a program. We can save them in the archive, which again, you can see at meggspointnaturecenter.org's virtual learning center. And you can go to the Meggs Point Nature Center YouTube channel and view our past programs there as well. So if you miss a program and it gets way down on your Facebook wall, you can go and see it recorded somewhere else. All right, this is Ranger Russ. I hope you enjoyed this beautiful trail. This is Cedar Island Trail, and it's right out behind the Nature Center. You can't see the Nature Center from here, or I'd show you that, but this is the Cedar Island Trail. I hope you enjoy it, and we will see you next Tuesday at 11 o'clock for another program.